When 6-year-old Emma Rodriguez grabbed onto the leather vest of a stranger in a Target parking lot in suburban Phoenix and refused to let go no matter how many times the woman with her tried to pull her away, security cameras captured every second of what happened next. The footage would later show a small child's desperate attempt to signal danger to someone who looked strong enough to help, a biker's split-second decision to trust a kid over appearances, and the unraveling of a nightmare that had begun 3 states away when Emma's mother reported her missing from a park in San Antonio 5 days earlier. What the cameras couldn't capture was the terror in Emma's eyes, or the 3 words she whispered into that stranger's ear that made everything else stop mattering. This is the story of how one observant man and a brotherhood of bikers turned a routine Saturday afternoon into a rescue operation that would expose a multi-state trafficking attempt and prove that sometimes children in danger will latch onto anyone who seems capable of protecting them, even when that person is a complete stranger wearing leather and riding a motorcycle. The Target parking lot off Bell Road in North Phoenix shimmered under the late afternoon sun on the first Saturday in September. It was the kind of ordinary weekend chaos that made everyone invisible to each other. Families loading groceries into SUVs, teenagers heading in for last-minute school supplies, retirees browsing the dollar section, tourists stopping for water and snacks on their way to Sedona. Nobody was paying attention to anyone else. Everyone had their own cart, their own list, their own mission. Marcus Stone was loading bags into his saddlebags when he felt it, small fingers digging into the back of his vest with a grip so tight it actually pulled the leather. He spun around to find a little girl, maybe 6 years old, Latina with dark brown hair pulled into 2 messy ponytails, wearing a pink Disney princess dress that was wrinkled and stained like she'd been wearing it for days. The child's sneakers were scuffed and dirty, one shoelace dragging on the pavement, and her face was streaked with what looked like dried tears and smudged makeup that had no business being on a child that young. Marcus was 47 years old, sergeant-at-arms for the Desert Riders Motorcycle Club out of Phoenix, a former Army medic who'd spent 12 years patching up soldiers in Afghanistan and Iraq before coming home and finding he couldn't quite fit back into civilian life. He'd found purpose again on 2 wheels with a brotherhood of veterans who rode hard, lived clean, and showed up when vulnerable people needed them. The patches on his black leather vest marked him as someone who'd earned his place through service and loyalty. His graying dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail, his arms marked with tattoos that told stories of deployment and loss, and his brown eyes had seen enough combat and trauma to recognize it instantly. The child was clutching Marcus's vest like it was the only solid thing in a world that had gone liquid and dangerous. Her small hands were shaking, her breathing was fast and shallow, and she wasn't letting go. A woman appeared beside them almost immediately, late 30s, white bleached blonde hair with dark roots showing, wearing expensive sunglasses and designer workout clothes that looked brand new. Her smile was bright and apologetic and completely wrong for the situation. "I'm so sorry," the woman said, reaching for the child's arm. "Emma, honey, let go of the nice man. You're bothering him. Come on now. We need to get going." The little girl's grip on Marcus's vest tightened. She shook her head, a tiny, almost imperceptible movement, and Marcus felt something shift in his chest. That old combat medic instinct that had saved more than one soldier over the years. Something's wrong here. Marcus knelt down slowly, bringing himself to the child's eye level, and kept his voice gentle. "Hey there, sweetheart. My name's Marcus. What's your name?" The woman answered before the child could. "Her name is Emma. She's my niece. She's been having a rough day and she's a little confused. We really need to get home." Marcus kept his eyes on the child. "Emma, is that your name?" The little girl nodded but didn't speak. Her eyes were locked on Marcus's face with an intensity that was unusual for a 6-year-old. Kids that age were usually shy with strangers or distracted or playful. This child was hyper-focused in a way that screamed fear. "I'm so sorry about this," the woman continued, her voice taking on an edge of frustration. "She gets like this sometimes. Stranger anxiety. The pediatrician says it's a phase. Come on, Emma, let go now." The woman reached for Emma's arm again and the child flinched. It was a small movement, barely noticeable, but Marcus had spent 12 years watching for exactly that kind of reaction in villages where kids had learned to fear adults in uniform. Kids who flinched when people reached for them had learned to expect pain. Actually, Marcus said, standing up but staying between the woman and Emma, why don't we give her a minute? She seems pretty upset. Maybe I can help calm her down. I worked with kids overseas. I'm good at this. The woman's smile tightened. That's very kind, but we really need to go. My husband is waiting at home and we're already late. Marcus noticed several things in quick succession. The woman's hands were clenched. Her jaw was tight. She kept glancing toward a silver Honda Accord parked 3 spaces away with California plates. And Emma had started trembling, her small body shaking so hard Marcus could feel it through the leather vest. "What's your husband's name?" Marcus asked conversationally, keeping his tone light. "Maybe I know him. I've lived in Phoenix for 15 years. The woman hesitated for just a fraction of a second. "David. His name is David." "And what's your name?" The woman's eyes narrowed. "Lisa." "Look, I appreciate your concern, but this is really none of your business. Emma, let go of him right now or you're going to be in serious trouble when we get home." That's when Emma did something that changed everything. She leaned in close to Marcus, close enough that her breath was warm against his ear, and whispered 3 words that made Marcus's blood go ice cold. "She's not family." Marcus's training took over before his conscious mind caught up. He stood and positioned himself fully between the woman and Emma, his body language shifting from friendly to protective. The woman noticed immediately, her face changing from frustrated to calculating. "You know what?" Marcus said calmly. "I think we should call Emma's parents, just to make sure everyone's on the same page. I've got my phone right here. What's their number?" The woman's expression went flat. "That's not necessary. I told you I'm her aunt. We're leaving now. Emma, come here immediately." Emma's grip on Marcus's vest became painful. The child was making small whimpering sounds now, like an animal caught in a trap. Behind Marcus, 2 more motorcycles pulled into the parking lot. Hawk and Diesel, 2 of his Desert Riders brothers who'd been riding with him that afternoon. They'd gone inside while Marcus loaded up, but they were coming back now, and they were already reading the situation with the kind of awareness that came from years of combat and watching each other's backs. "Everything okay here, Stone?" Hawk called out, walking over with deliberate casualness. He was in his early 50s, a former Marine with gray streaking through his beard and the kind of presence that made people pay attention. "Fine," the woman said quickly. "We were just leaving." Marcus kept his voice steady. "Actually, I think we need to sort something out first. This is Emma. This is Lisa. Lisa says she's Emma's aunt. Emma says she's not family. I think we should clear that up before anyone goes anywhere." The woman's face flushed red. "This is ridiculous. You can't just keep my niece from me. I'll call the police." "Good idea," Diesel said, already pulling out his phone. "Let's do that. Let's get the police here and they can verify everything. That way, everyone feels safe." The woman's eyes went wide. She looked at the 3 bikers, at Emma clinging to Marcus's vest, at the phone in Diesel's hand, and she made a choice. She turned and walked quickly toward the silver Honda. Hawk moved fast, positioning his bike to block the car's exit path. Diesel was already dialing. And Marcus scooped Emma up into his arms, the child immediately wrapping her legs around his waist and burying her face in his shoulder. "This is Diesel Hammond calling from the Target parking lot on Bell Road. We have a possible child abduction situation. A woman just tried to take a little girl who says she's not family. The woman is now in a silver Honda Accord California plates." He rattled off the license plate number while Hawk kept his position blocking the car. The woman in the Honda started her engine but couldn't go anywhere. She was boxed in by Hawk's motorcycle in front, shopping carts on one side, and other parked cars on the other side. Marcus carried Emma to his own bike and sat down on the curb beside it, keeping the child close. Emma was crying now, silent tears that soaked into Marcus's leather vest, her small body shaking with relief or terror or both. "You're safe," Marcus murmured. "You're safe now. We're not going to let anyone hurt you." Emma pulled back just enough to look at Marcus's face. Her eyes were red and swollen. "She took me from the park. 5 days ago. I was playing and she said my mama sent her to get me. But she didn't take me to mama. She took me in her car and we drove and she said I was going to a new family. But I don't want a new family. I want my mama." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Where's your mama, sweetheart?" "San Antonio. We live in San Antonio. My mama's name is Sofia Rodriguez. She works at a restaurant. She makes the best tacos. Two Phoenix police cruisers pulled into the parking lot within 4 minutes, lights flashing. Officers emerged and immediately took control of the scene. The woman in the Honda was ordered out of her vehicle and placed in handcuffs while protesting loudly that this was all a misunderstanding. Marcus gave his statement while holding Emma, who refused to let go of his vest. Hawk and Diesel provided their observations, and within minutes, the full picture started emerging. The lead officer, Sergeant Ramirez, returned after running both the woman's ID and the license plates. The woman was Jennifer Hastings, 38, with an outstanding warrant in California for kidnapping. The car was registered to someone else entirely, and when they ran Emma's description and first name against missing children databases, they got a hit immediately. Emma Sofia Rodriguez, 6 years old, reported missing from Brackenridge Park in San Antonio 5 days ago. Marcus's statement matched the details. The mother, Sofia Rodriguez, was a restaurant manager. She'd been frantically searching since her daughter disappeared from a park while playing on the swings. "You saved this child's life," Ramirez told Marcus quietly, while another officer contacted San Antonio PD and Emma's mother. "If that woman had gotten her in the car and out of this parking lot, she'd have disappeared completely. We've been tracking Hastings for 8 months. She's connected to a network that moves children. You broke that chain." Marcus looked down at Emma, who had finally stopped crying and was just holding on, exhausted. "I didn't do anything special." She asked for help. "I listened." "Most people wouldn't have," Ramirez said. "Most people would have assumed the woman was telling the truth, would have let them leave, would have decided it wasn't their business." Over the next 2 hours, while they waited for Sofia Rodriguez to make the 14-hour drive from San Antonio, Emma stayed with Marcus. The police offered to have a social worker take her to a child advocacy center, but Emma wouldn't let go of Marcus's vest and Marcus wasn't about to force her. They sat together in an interview room at the Phoenix Police Department, and slowly, carefully, Emma told her story. She'd been playing at the park near her house on a Tuesday afternoon. Her mama was watching from a bench while talking on the phone about a work problem. Jennifer Hastings had approached Emma at the swings and told her that her mama had sent her to pick Emma up because there was an emergency at the restaurant. Emma had hesitated because her mama always told her never to go with strangers, but the woman knew her mama's name and where she worked and said it was very important. Emma had looked toward the bench where her mama had been sitting, but her mama wasn't there anymore. She'd gone to deal with the phone call, and Emma had made a choice that 6-year-olds shouldn't have to make. She'd trusted the woman because she seemed to know her mother. The woman had driven Emma to a house Emma didn't recognize. She'd given her food and told her to be quiet. She'd put makeup on Emma's face and changed her clothes into the Disney princess dress. She'd told Emma that her mother didn't want her anymore, that she was going to a new family who would love her better. Emma hadn't believed it, but she'd been too scared to fight back. The woman was bigger and stronger, and Emma was alone. For 5 days, Jennifer Hastings had kept Emma in different locations, moving her around, waiting for something. Emma didn't know what. But that afternoon, the woman had said they were going to Target to buy supplies before a long trip, and Emma, who'd been watching and waiting for any chance to escape, had seen the biker in the parking lot when they came out of the store. "I saw your jacket," Emma told Marcus. "It had that skull with the flag on it, and you looked really big and strong. You looked like a soldier, and I thought maybe if I could just hold on to you, maybe you wouldn't let her take me away." Marcus looked at the Desert Rider's patch on his vest, the emblem showing a skull with an American flag bandana. "You were so brave, Emma. You held on and you told me the truth and you saved yourself." Emma shook her head seriously. "You saved me. You didn't let go even when she said to." Hawk and Diesel had stayed at the police station, and other Desert Riders members started arriving as word spread through the club. By evening, there were 6 bikers sitting in the waiting area, a protective presence that made every officer in the building nod with respect. These were men who showed up when vulnerable people needed them, who ran programs for homeless veterans and at-risk youth, who understood that protection sometimes looked like leather and motorcycles and a refusal to look away when something felt wrong. Detective Sarah Morrison, who specialized in child crimes, came to update them around 7 p.m. Sofia Rodriguez had just crossed into Arizona and would arrive in approximately 3 hours. Jennifer Hastings was being held without bail and would be extradited to California to face multiple kidnapping charges. The investigation was revealing connections to a larger network that had been operating for years, moving children across state lines. Emma's rescue had given them their first solid lead in months. "Mr. Stone," Morrison said, sitting down across from Marcus, "Emma has told us that you're the first person who listened to her in 5 days. The first person who believed something was wrong. That matters more than you probably realize." Marcus was still holding Emma, who'd fallen asleep against his shoulder. "I just paid attention." That's all any of us need to do, pay attention when kids are trying to tell us something. "The Desert Riders had a saying," Hawk added quietly. "The most dangerous person in any situation is the one everyone thinks looks dangerous. But the most dangerous situation is the one everyone thinks looks normal." That woman looked normal, looked like a stressed aunt with a difficult kid. And that's exactly what predators count on. That people will believe the easy story instead of trusting what they're actually seeing. When Sofia Rodriguez arrived at the Phoenix Police Department at 10:43 p.m., she came through the doors at a run. She was a woman in her early 30s, still wearing her work clothes from the restaurant, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, her face drawn with 5 days of sleepless terror and frantic searching. The moment she saw Emma asleep in Marcus's arms, she made a sound that was part sob, part prayer, and collapsed to her knees. Marcus gently woke Emma and turned her so she could see who'd arrived. The child's eyes opened slowly, confused and disoriented, and then focused on her mother's face. The transformation was immediate. Emma's whole body came alive and she was scrambling down from Marcus's lap and running across the room into her mother's arms with a cry that shattered every heart in that police station. "Mama, Mama, Mama," Emma sobbed, and Sofia caught her and held her so tightly that Marcus could see the muscles straining in her arms. She was crying and speaking rapid Spanish mixed with English, checking Emma over with shaking hands, running her fingers over her daughter's arms and legs and face to make sure she was really there and really whole. Emma was crying and laughing and trying to tell her mother everything at once about the bad lady and the car and being scared and the biker man who wouldn't let go. After several minutes, Sofia looked up at Marcus with tears streaming down her face. She stood, still holding Emma on her hip, and walked over to where Marcus and the other Desert Riders were standing. "You're the one who saved her," Sofia said. It wasn't a question. "She saved herself," Marcus said gently. "She was brave enough to ask for help." "I just listened," Sofia shook her head. "For 5 days I've been driving to every city between San Antonio and here. 5 days of imagining the worst. 5 days of thinking I'd never see her again." She reached out with her free hand and gripped Marcus's arm. "You gave me back my daughter. How do I thank someone for that?" "You don't," Marcus said simply. "You just hold her tight and keep her safe. That's all any of us want." But Sofia wasn't done. She looked at the other Desert Riders members standing in solidarity. "All of you. You stopped everything you were doing. You blocked that car, you called the police, you stayed with my daughter for hours, you're strangers, and you treated her like she was your own family." Diesel stepped forward. "We have a saying in our club. We ride for those who can't ride for themselves. Your daughter needed someone to fight for her. That's what we do." Over the next hour, while Sofia and Emma gave their statements and were checked by paramedics, the Desert Riders coordinated with the Phoenix PD to ensure Sofia had everything she needed. A hotel room for the night since she was too exhausted to drive. Food for both of them since neither had eaten properly. Contact information for trauma counselors who specialized in child abduction cases. And a promise that they'd check in to make sure Emma's recovery went smoothly. Before they left the police station, Emma insisted on showing her mother Marcus's motorcycle. They walked out into the parking lot together, and Emma's face lit up when she saw the row of bikes belonging to the Desert Riders. "Which one is yours?" Emma asked Marcus. Marcus walked over to his Road King and lifted Emma up to sit on the seat. "This one right here." "It's beautiful," Emma breathed. She ran her small hands over the leather seat and the chrome and the patches on Marcus's vest that was draped over the handlebars. "When I grow up, I want to ride a motorcycle just like this. And I want to help people just like you did." "That sounds like a wonderful plan," Marcus said. Sofia was crying again, but quietly this time, watching her daughter sit on a motorcycle and smile for the first time in 5 days. She pulled out her phone and took a picture, capturing Emma on Marcus's bike with 6 Desert Riders members standing around her in protective formation. "I want to stay in touch," Sophia said to Marcus. "If that's okay, I want Emma to remember you. To remember that when she needed help, someone showed up, someone listened, someone believed her." "We'd be honored," Marcus said. The Desert Riders and the Rodriguez family maintained contact in the months and years that followed. Sophia sent updates about Emma's therapy and recovery. The child had nightmares for months, but she healed. She became more confident, more willing to speak up when something felt wrong, more certain that her voice mattered. Her therapist said that having an adult believe her immediately had prevented much deeper trauma. Being validated in her fear instead of dismissed had made all the difference. When Emma turned 8, the Rodriguez family drove from San Antonio to Phoenix for a Desert Riders charity ride. Emma wore a child-sized leather vest that Sophia had ordered custom-made with a patch showing a desert landscape and a motorcycle. She rode on the back of Marcus's bike in proper safety gear, her arms wrapped around Marcus's waist, laughing with pure joy as they cruised through the Arizona desert with 30 motorcycles thundering around them. That night at the club's barbecue, Emma stood up in front of everyone and spoke in a clear voice that carried across the gathered crowd. "My name is Emma Rodriguez, and 2 years ago a bad person took me from my mama. I was really scared and I didn't know what to do. But I saw Marcus in his vest and I thought he looked strong. So I grabbed on and I didn't let go. And he didn't let go of me either. He believed me when I said something was wrong, and because he believed me, I'm here today." The child paused and looked at her mother, then back at the crowd. "My mama says that heroes come in all kinds of shapes. Sometimes they wear uniforms, and sometimes they wear leather and ride motorcycles. I learned that asking for help is brave, and I learned that there are people watching who will help if you ask. So if you're ever scared or something feels wrong, don't be afraid to grab onto someone who looks strong. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Because people like Marcus and the Desert Riders are everywhere. You just have to be brave enough to reach out." There wasn't a dry eye among 30 bikers. These were men who'd seen combat and loss and trauma, who'd rebuilt their lives from wreckage, who'd learned that strength meant showing up for people who couldn't show up for themselves. And watching this 8-year-old girl stand tall and speak her truth reminded every one of them why they wore those patches, why they rode together. Why paying attention to the vulnerable mattered more than looking tough or fitting in or avoiding awkward confrontations. The story of Emma and the Target parking lot became part of Desert Riders' identity. It was a reminder that their role wasn't just charity rides and fundraising. It was being present and aware and willing to act when someone signaled for help, being the kind of men who believed children when they said something was wrong. Being the kind of men who'd risk looking foolish or causing a scene if it meant potentially saving a life. The club started a program called Eyes Open Initiative, training workshops teaching people to recognize signs of distress in children, trafficking indicators, and coercion behaviors. They taught parents to teach their children that asking strangers for help in genuine emergencies was smart and necessary. They distributed cards with warning signs and instructions for what to do if you witnessed something suspicious. They partnered with local law enforcement and child advocacy centers to create a network of awareness. Over the following 5 years, 3 more Desert Riders members recognized and intervened in suspicious situations involving children. One was a gas station where a teenage girl mouthed, "Help me," through a car window. One was a rest stop where a boy was being forced into a van. One was a shopping mall where a child was being pulled away while crying for someone who didn't match the adult claiming to be family. Each time, someone paid attention. Each time, someone chose to believe the child over the convenient explanation. Each time, someone was willing to cause a disruption and demand verification. Each time, a child went home safely instead of disappearing into a system designed to make them vanish. Marcus kept one photograph from that night at the police station. Sophia had taken it with her phone and sent it later. It showed Emma asleep against Marcus's shoulder, small fingers still gripping the Desert Riders patch, her face peaceful for the first time in 5 days. The image was slightly blurry because Sophia's hands had been shaking, but you could see the trust in Emma's sleeping face. the absolute certainty that she was finally safe. That photograph hung in the Desert Riders Clubhouse with a caption Emma had written when she was 10 years old. Sometimes being brave means grabbing onto a stranger and asking for help. Sometimes being a hero means believing a child who has no reason to lie. Thank you for seeing me when I needed to be seen. When Emma turned 12, she asked her mother if she could get a small tattoo. Not a real one, because she was too young, but a temporary one that she could renew every few months. Sophia asked what she wanted, and Emma showed her a drawing she'd made, a small motorcycle with wings and the words, "I was seen," written underneath in careful script. Sophia looked at her daughter, this confident 12-year-old who spoke at her school about trusting your instincts and asking for help, who volunteered at a child advocacy center, who wanted to become either a police officer or a social worker, or maybe join the military, someone who helped people, someone who showed up. "You were seen," Sophia said quietly, "and because someone saw you, you're here. You're safe. You're loved. And you're teaching other children that their voices matter." Because that was the truth, wasn't it? That one person paying attention could save a life. That believing a child who signaled distress was more important than maintaining social comfort. That being willing to block an exit and make a scene and potentially be wrong was a small price to pay if it meant a child went home instead of disappearing forever. The communities formed when people chose awareness over convenience. And that sometimes the most heroic thing someone could do was simply believe a 6-year-old girl who grabbed a stranger's vest and whispered, "She's not family." The Desert Riders continued riding year after year, showing up for charity events and veteran support programs and community outreach. But they also continued being present and watchful in ordinary spaces. Parking lots and gas stations and shopping centers and rest stops, places where predators operated in plain sight, because they counted on people looking away. The club became known not just for their patches and their bikes, but for their absolute refusal to ignore children in distress. If you've ever witnessed something that felt wrong and hesitated to act because you didn't want to cause a scene, this story is your reminder that scenes save lives, that awkward confrontations prevent tragedies, that believing children when they signal danger is more important than believing convenient explanations from adults. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that paying attention matters, that trust your gut when something feels off, that be willing to block an exit, call the police, and stand between a child and danger even if you might be wrong. Because the cost of being mistaken is embarrassment. The cost of looking away is something no one should have to carry. Emma Rodriguez is 16 now, and she still wears that Desert Riders patch her mother had made for her. She still rides with Marcus once a year at the club's anniversary event, and she still tells her story to anyone who will listen, because she understands something that took most people decades to learn. That being saved changes you. That being believed when everyone else might have dismissed you teaches you that your perception matters, that your voice has power, that asking for help isn't weakness, it's the bravest thing you can do, and that somewhere, always, there are people watching who will grab back when you reach out. People who won't let go no matter how hard someone tries to pull you away. People who believe that protecting the vulnerable is worth any risk, any inconvenience, any scene that needs to be caused. Tell us in the comments, would you have believed Emma? Would you have blocked that car? Your answer matters because children in danger need adults willing to act, and every person willing to pay attention becomes part of the solution that brings children home.